National Signing Day, the best day of the year for a college football junkie. Um, it's kind of lost a bit of its luster, hadn't it, with the early signing day? I'm going to talk about this briefly today for LSU fans out there and how I feel about the recruiting class. My name's Preston Guy. I've spent last 3 years um, covering high school football games across the Baton Rouge area. So a lot of these players for LSU, I've had the opportunity to cover, meet firsthand. Of course, before that, I worked as a student worker with LSU Sports Information Department, where I got to work with a lot of football players and administration and stuff there. So I kind of have a really good perspective on National Signing Day, kind of a blending of both my worlds. So the signing day lost a bit of luster with the drama and stuff like that, having to split it up between early signing day. It used to be Christmas in February. Now it's more so Christmas with cherry on top coming in February. But we still see things like Miami signing a 6'5" punter, 220 pounds, looks like Conor McGregor. Dude's a freak, man. Out of Australia, of course, of all things, and he's 24 years old. So it's crazy stuff like that. Then you see Les Miles at Kansas signing dudes showing up with a Kansas State sweater, pulls it off, looks like he's got Texas Tech taped on the shirt, and then he takes that off and he's got Rock Chalk Jayhawk body paint on. That's how he commits. That's a new one. I thought we were getting really overplayed with the psych fake hat. The cliche, I'm committing to the Bulldogs. Here's a Bulldog puppy, So it's good to see some new stuff, some new shenanigans, and hopefully he didn't upset those fan bases too very much. So the most memorable thing for LSU fans, of course, today is not good, but it kind of steals the luster of what the day really is for LSU, because this was a fantastic recruiting class. I'm going to tell y'all why in a bit. But so LSU got beat out for in-state talent to Alabama, something we've heard. Fans are begrudgingly too familiar with at this point. But got beat out for Ishmael Sopsher out of Amite High School. Ishmael is a big defensive tackle. One of the cool things in his little all-star game he participated in, they said his head was too big for a helmet to fit there, so they had to bring a special helmet in. Just real big dude. You look at his film, he has a lot of the plagues that a lot of big, uber-talented defensive linemen have. We've seen them all over, where they play high. They don't get low, but they don't need to. They're so much more talented than the dudes around them. They just dominate. They don't have to go. They don't have the motor. So a lot of times they have all that talent, and a lot of good coaches can bring that out of these guys. But overall, it does take a monumental coaching effort to get these guys to live up to their potential. So we saw Shropshire drop a little bit in the rankings. It just doesn't have that high motor. Overall, you still want this player on your campus. You got a dude like Ed Orgeron, who is legendary coaching up defensive linemen. You want to give him a chance to help get a guy with high potential. You absolutely. So there's no slicing and dicing. You missed on Shropshire. You gave it all you got. There's nothing else you could have done better to get the kid. They rolled out the red carpet. They just got beat out by Alabama. But here's the good news. As far as I'm aware, every other kid they offered in the state of Louisiana, they got. That's huge. That's a big deal, including 8 of the top 10 players. I think there was one other player in there who did end up going to Bama from U High. I don't think LSU offered him just because he didn't fit in with scheme or whatever. So you miss on Sopsher, but the good news is you got Devonta Lee today out of Amite High School as well. So that's good. We've got a real dry streak going on at Amite High School, so it's good to see guys like that put on purple and gold, or stay in the purple and gold, I should say, and go to LSU if you're an LSU fan. I'm sure every LSU fan is tired of seeing Devonta Smith from Amite High School catch that game-winning touchdown against Georgia in the national championship a couple years ago. LSU fans, I'm sure, cringe every time they see a bit of Louisiana talent winning national championships and beating LSU with players who probably grew up dreaming of playing for LSU. So it wasn't quite a quiet day for Ed Orgeron. We 3 guys who were committed signed the dotted line, including Maurice Hampton, who was on the line. He's a very talented safety and baseball player. He's going to come play both sports for LSU, which is big deal if you're a LSU fan who also enjoys baseball. It's good to get that guy. So he did sign the dotted line after some speculation. It's not quite a done deal whether he'll actually play for LSU, as far as I'm aware. If he gets drafted very highly in the upcoming Major League Baseball draft, it's very likely that he takes the money and runs. And it's probably the right decision for a kid who can, become a millionaire or, play college football. But I mean, I would probably never tell any kid who could be making millions of dollars to turn that down. So good for him. If he stays on campus, it's more of a rich get richer because this is an excellent DB class for LSU. And he would just be absolutely great to bolster this class. You're gonna see there's a lot of guys in here who really make this class special for LSU. So oh, excuse me, I have something in my throat there. One thing we saw different about this signing day class here is Orgeron filled up every single spot, and that's actually the first time he's done that since he became the head coach. Even in his interim year, he still left the spot open. Last year, he left spots open. We saw grad transfers come in. We've seen these guys come in and make an impact. Braden Fajoko, great impact. He took Jonathan Giles, who looked like he was going to be a stud. He might bounce back. I get he had a bad year, but even he contributed and caught balls last year. Joe Burrow, of course. I mean, golly, I mean, what five-star kid is going to have the impact that Joe Burrow had last night, coming in and winning your starting quarterback job after it looked like quarterback was going to be a nightmare in the spring game because Miles Brennan wasn't ready. Justin McMillan looked like he might have been the best player, and that just was not going to be a good situation for LSU having him out there. Quite frankly, it's really good that Joe Burrow came in to save the season. So I find it very interesting that Ed Orgeron did not leave some open spots for some grad transfers, because even back to his days at Ole Miss, that was kind of his moat, add some JUCO and grad transfer guys to kind of add some immediate impact. So the question is why that's interesting. Is this going to be his new thing moving forward? Is he's going to build his roster and his team through signings? Or is he going to revert back to leaving some spots open and bringing some signees? Either way you look at it, you've had success both ways at LSU. It's almost like the most important thing at LSU is make sure you're the last guy to get that offer, because no matter who it's been, how it's been, he's been insanely successful at LSU. You go back to like Deion Jones getting that last spot, Duke Riley, Justin Jefferson, just absolutely. Sorry, guys. Successful for just about anybody who got that spot. And in addition, Joe Burrow was highly successful. So it'll be interesting to see what his strategy is. There's no right or wrong answer at this point that I can say, but it is nice, different to see, because Ed Orgeron did miss on guys today, and he did take 3-star or lower talented players. So. In the past, we haven't seen him do that, and that would be something Les Miles would do with guys like Foster Moreau, kid out of Mississippi, did not commit to LSU like he thought, a linebacker kid one year. He went to Mississippi State, and LSU offered Foster Moreau instead, and Foster Moreau turned out to have a very good career for LSU. So overall, this class ranked anywhere between 7th and 3rd based on who you're looking at. I think ESPN had LSU at 7. I think Rivals had LSU at 3. The composite, 24/7 composite, which is what I try to lean toward because it's just kind of a industrial average, puts all the knowledge into one fell thing, had LSU at 5th overall. That's a pretty good class on paper. I think you got to dissect. That's a little lazy just to look at star ratings, composites, and use a score to really evaluate the class. But, time has proven that, there is a direct correlation between those recruiting rankings and how your team finishes on the field. So they do matter. Don't let people tell you stars don't matter. Stars matter. 100%. If you don't believe me, go look at the teams who have made the playoffs over the last few years. More times than not, they're going to have top 10, top 20 recruiting class at the very least. I thought that the class featured some very special talent, starting with Ed Orgeron didn't have to go far to pluck this guy, Derek Stingley Jr., and I'm sure you've heard of him by now. I had a really close experience getting to cover Derek Stingley. I got to cover him in his game against East Feliciana, where he had 3 touchdowns on 5 touches. And not only were those 3 touchdowns, I mean, he threw for one, he caught one, he ran for one. I mean, you can't get much more dominant than that. And it's not like we're talking about like he took a quarterback sneak in for you. I mean, they were an average of over 40 yards. I want to say 40.5 yards per carry on those touchdowns. That's insane. That's insane. The dude was untouchable. I haven't seen a player dominate a game like that since Chad Jones. I actually played against Chad Jones when I was a freshman. I didn't really play much, but he did. And I don't think we tackled him on his first like 6 punt returns. It was 36-0 in the first quarter. I mean, the guy was just insanely talented, dominated. In addition to Derek Stingley's touchdowns on offense, he shut down a complete half side of the field. They couldn't throw it anywhere near him. It just was a futile effort. Insanely talented player. And in fact, Dave Aranda mentioned that he might be one of the best guys out there during bowl practices. He certainly would have started in the Fiesta Bowl had he been eligible for that. Kind of something I would like to see is a lot of these early enrollee guys get to play in non-playoff bowl games to kind of add some interest. You know, we're going to have a lot of guys skipping the bowl game. You know, it'd be cool to add a few guys to go in. Very few guys would actually be talented enough to come in a couple weeks and then start playing. But for those who would, it'd be very fun to watch. So Derek Stingley Jr., insanely talented player, along with guys like Maurice Hampton. Very, very talented guy. It's going to be very good for LSU's defensive backfield moving forward, especially if they can keep a guy like that. The next big name guy you really need to get to know is John Emery Jr., running back out of Destrehan High School. He's the most plug-and-play, ready-to-go running back I've seen in a very long time. That includes Leonard Fournette. Now, Leonard Fournette is by far the best prospect I've ever seen. He was absolute stud. It was very obvious day one he was going to be a special talent. But Leonard Fournette had top-end speed. But it did take him a while to get up and going. And as a new player, when you're learning how to read your holes and stuff, sometimes you got to learn patience and stuff. A lot of times these guys with acceleration that's really good, they can just find a little crease, hit it real hard, and go upfield real fast. And Johnny Emery Jr. has the right size body to be a good running back. He's about 5'11", about 205. Really good, fast player. Kind of runs like Ezekiel Elliott for the Cowboys. I mean, that's what he reminds me of a lot of. He is not in the frame of a big, bulky back. He is a very, Reggie Bush style, make you miss, do a spin move, get out in open field and make something happen type back. I see that as the kind of player who is more easily to plug into an offense than a big, bulky back who needs to learn how to find his holes and really hit the seam the right way. So he's going to be good. He's going to compete with, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Day one, he's going to be splitting snaps with him. I would expect him to possibly take over that starting role before the end of the year. We'll just have to see. Another star that I think you really want to keep an eye on, and I keep, he dropped really, really far late into the recruiting process. He had this shut down since he was a sophomore. He committed to LSU. Actually, he committed before Les Miles was fired. I actually had a chance to interview him. I thought he was the most charismatic, funny dude in the world. Giant teddy bear looking kid. Cardell Thomas out of Southern Lab. Massive kid. I mean, I'm talking 6'3", 356, and he's got baby fat on him. There ain't no mistake. But he's a big boy. He is a gorilla, and he is a mauler, and he's shown that at combines. He makes a regular habit of just embarrassing 5-star players. So when I spoke with him at Southern Lab, actually after beating a top 5 team 50-0, those Southern Lab teams were really, really good. He told me, I asked him about Les Miles being fired. I said, hey, man, how solid are you on your commitment, even though they're talking about firing Les Miles, who's just lost to Wisconsin? And he said, oh, it don't matter. I'm all the way LSU. Don't matter. LSU. And he pulled up his LSU gloves. I loved it. It was great. So he's really a vocal guy, but he does a lot of things to catch headlines. He did a fat boy relay at a track event, and he just showed off absolute speed. I mean, the dude can move. He's got speed. At the Army All-American game showed off that he can return punts. I mean, he's an athlete, man. I mean, everywhere he goes, he's drawing headlines. Now, I think a lot of the services, in particular, 24/7 Sports, dropped him all the way like the 315th ranked player in the country. That is a joke, in my opinion. To not have him as a 5-star player. Here's the thing. Yeah, look, a lot of services are going to dink you because, oh, he doesn't have the quick feet, which is different from speed, by the way. Quick feet, you do need that to play offensive tackle because you're out on an island on the edge there with very fast edge rushers. You got to do that. But as a guard, you usually have outside assists and inside assists. So quick feet aren't as quite as pertinent as, say, mauling a dude in front of you, which he is clearly going to be one of the best in the country at. I mean, you talk about going for it on 4th and 1, which Orgeron has a habit of doing. I mean, you don't want a dude other than Cardell Thomas right there in the middle, pushing dudes back behind him. And the thing is that the other thing guards do is they pull. They go out and they got to find a man upfield. He's got the top end speed, and all he has to do once he gets in the right place is really just be there. I mean, you're not getting. I mean, that's a lot to get around. So I think he's going to be a fantastic guard. I don't know if he'll get on the field as a starter game one. It'll be tough to see because LSU's got some guys in place. But he will definitely be making an impact fairly quickly. It's a travesty that they pulled his 5th star from him. I think that's just a misunderstanding of offensive linemen. As a former offensive lineman myself, I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to that. Speaking of purist for the offensive lineman, another strategy Ed Orgeron has changed since he took over. During the Les Miles period, he really liked to get the 4 or 5 best linemen he could get his hands on and play them at whatever position, even if that meant playing a guy who's a true guard at offensive tackle, which I think LSU fans have bemoaned about for quite a while now, as LSU's had struggles in the trenches because of mismatching personnel. This year, Ed Orgeron continued the trend of finding true offensive tackles. A guy like Ray Parker, who seems to be a true offensive tackle, albeit on the lighter side, need to bulk up. But he that quick feet and stuff, they've got him listed at tight end. So we'll see. That doesn't always pan out. Kid Thomas Perry out of Turlings Catholic in Lafayette. That's a true offensive tackle. Long arms, long legs. We'll see if he can develop quick feet and stuff. But he's not a highly recruited guy. I think he's about 650 in the country, ranked 3-star kid. Not a big headline guy. But Orgeron could have probably gone out and find a big name offensive guard behind Cardell Thomas, but it seems like to me he passed up on a lot of guys to make sure he got a true excuse me, offensive tackle. So another strategy change. Will it work? I think LSU fans suspect it will. I tend to be of the mindset that it doesn't matter if you don't get the 5-star guard or whatever. You need to have an offensive tackle who can cover that blind side. You got to have a right tackle and left tackle. I think as backups, it's okay to put in a highly talented guard as a sub in, but I mean, you got to have at least 2 true offensive tackles. I also think quantity is a big deal. You need 5 offensive linemen every year, in my opinion, just because that's such a high turnover position, injury prone. You need volume dudes out there, man. Good, pretty good job. But I will say a lot of the offensive linemen would have been nice to get more kind of star power going with that. But that was a need that was filled. Another need LSU had was for defensive linemen, and that is one of the reasons why LSU fans cringe at the notion of losing Ishmael Shropshire, who you desperately needed to fill that need, and now he's going to your rival you have to play every year, and you haven't beat them in 8 tries. I get it. That's a tough pill to swallow. But anyways, he is going to be going to play for Alabama, not LSU. LSU only signed true defensive linemen as LSU has them listed. That being said, they added a couple guys last second, such as Desmond Little, who was the 25th member of this class, who, studies show over the last few years that Oh yeah, he's guaranteed to be successful, but he's a kind of a tweener guy. LSU's got him listed as outside linebacker. Of course, as the Dave Aranda runs this 3-4-1 gap defense, where that outside linebacker plays almost like a defensive end, but they do have to do coverage stuff. So that's a dude who could bulk up, maybe move into defensive end or play the outside linebacker. We'll have to see. So I'd say saying that there was only 2 defensive linemen is a little deceptive. And they did sign the big name defensive tackle out of Utah, and I'm going to struggle with his name, Psyche Ilka. I'm probably going to get roasted for how I pronounced his name, but that was a good find. And getting kids like that out of Utah. I mean, LSU has no business pulling kids out of Utah, but kudos for Orgeron for not being afraid to get them. He got them, brought them in. You're going to see that in 2020, by the way. There's a couple kids out of California Orgeron's getting right now, including the number 1 cornerback in the country, Elias Ricks. No business getting that kid whatsoever, but DBU and Ed Orgeron doing work. It's kind of insane to see. In fact, LSU only took 11 players out of Louisiana this year. We've usually seen at least 12, but more like 12 to 15 out of Louisiana. At least you offered. And this year, it appears LSU only offered 12 guys that I can tell that they offered for sure. And the only one that they didn't get, of course, was Ishmael Shropshire. So very good year for building the fence around Louisiana. If Shropshire had stayed and screwed the fence down, Orgeron would have built a wall around Louisiana. I mean, Donald Trump would be coming knocking, trying to take some notes from Ed Orgeron with that wall, because that's just unheard of to get everyone you get. To get 11 out of 12 guys you wanted, very, very good. A lot of those guys were offered by Alabama, Georgia, everybody. John Emery, Derek Stingley, Cardell. I mean, everybody wanted those guys, but Orgeron locked them down, and you should lock them down as coach of LSU. Good job. So locking down Louisiana, a big, big deal that has implications beyond just getting the good players. A lot of times you get those relationships built. You have an advocate for your program for years to come. Next time a kid from the high school comes around, guess who's in their ear? Boom. It's a big deal to get kids in Louisiana, more so than out of state. I'm not saying you don't want out of state players, but you're just not going to build a pipeline like you are within Louisiana. Other needs, LSU did sign an obligatory quarterback. There was no particular rush to get a quarterback into play next year, but we did sign Peter Parrish, fresh off of a shellacking of Tulia Tagovailoa in the Alabama 6A state championship game. Peter Parrish and his team put on a whooping. Peter Parrish ran for about 100 yards. He only passed 9 times, 5 for 9, about 50 yards or so. I mean, he didn't really have an offense that featured his arm a ton, but, he managed it and did what he was asked to do. I think the arm talent is there. Can he develop into a more consistent passer? We'll have to see. It's a project. He wasn't one of the high. He was a lower end 4-star guy. And it's kind of a project. We're just going to have to wait and see if Peter Parrish actually turns into a dude. LSU's got 2 guys in 2020 coming down, Max Johnson and TJ Finley. TJ Finley is a project player, but he's arm talent out the wazoo. Max Johnson, more of a proven commodity, real accurate passer, less of the freakish arm talent. I mean, those are 2 highly... Excuse me, I'm sorry. Those are 2 of the very highly ranked players coming up the pike. And it's going to be interesting to see if Peter Parrish can compete with them for the starting job, because I think that Miles Brennan right now is being tailored as the heir apparent to Joe Burrow. Maybe the strategy for Peter Parrish, it might be just to add depth. We'll see. I'm rooting for the guy, and I hope he has success. I'm never going to rule a player out. It will be interesting to see what the staff's long-term plan is. I'm sure they're going to give him every opportunity to prove his role. Of course, last but not least, LSU got on 2 replacements for special teams players. Cole Tracy is off to the NFL, hopefully, after having a great year. One of the most beloved kickers I can remember in a long time for LSU. They got this guy, Cade York, who is the fourth-ranked kicker in the country. There was highlights of him hitting 60-yard field goals. We'll have to see if he is going to be the new kicker for LSU. That'd be great to get a good kicker for 4 years lined up. If not, I think Avery Atkins, the kickoff specialist from last year, he should have some talent as a kicker. As far as I'm aware, he'd be the other guy to watch out for as far as being the kicker. So keep an eye on that. LSU's long snapping dynasty out of Buford, Georgia. We got Reed Ferguson signed a long time ago. Of course, Reed Ferguson came in 2012 for LSU. Then his brother took over after he graduated after 4 years. And now Quentin Skinner out of Buford, Georgia is going to come in and replace Blake Ferguson right in time. He's going to redshirt next year, and then boom, another 4 years of LSU long snapping. So 12 years of of nearly perfect snaps, courtesy of Buford, Georgia, squared away. A lot of people debate, whether it's worth offering a long snapper a scholarship. Usually these long snappers, by the time they're good enough to get a scholarship, it's a pretty safe bet that they're going to be really, really, really good players. In my opinion, any recruiting class, each player has a 50-50 chance of not even being a part of your program within a year or two, or having very little to no impact. You can't tell me that on average offering one of these long snappers who have flawless snaps for 4 years isn't worth more. It's one of those positions you never notice until you notice, and then oh gosh, you've lost a game because the snap was bad, or even if it's not necessarily a bad snap, a lot of times having these guys with high velocity, really zipping it in there in a rope, that improves your special teams performance because your kicker doesn't have to adjust, or they're just quicker. So you want a good long snapper. Long story short, so overall you got to feel pretty good about this recruiting class, guys. I do think that LSU could have done a better job getting a higher volume of big name guys, but that's true for every single team in the country. Fifth ranked recruiting class, overall, I get that you want 25 just stud guys, but you got to understand in every class, tops, you're going to have 15 guys who make an impact. As long as, I think there are 15 guys who will make a very good impact. So it'll be interesting to see, you see guys like John Emery Jr., Derek Stingley, those are almost 100% chance going to be guys who are superstars at the college level. I think this is a very good recruiting class for LSU. Very top heavy, very star heavy. A lot of good character guys in this class. I think we're going to enjoy watching them for the next 3 to 4 years. So y'all let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to, subscribe, give me some feedback. This is my first time doing it. If y'all enjoyed this, I'll get a better broadcast setup than just my computer here, and maybe make this a more regular thing. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Y'all have a wonderful day. Hold them Tigers, baby.